All right, here we go. We up in the spot. KARIEM PRIMM DAMION WARE. We got our guest here today, VYRONE FINNEY, product of Akron Public Schools, graduate HBCU, Alabama State University.
Yes, sir.
Member of Omega Psi fraternity, one of 9 candidates running for 3 at-large seats in the city of Akron.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to the spot.
Welcome.
Tell us, man, everything that you got going on, you got a rich history. Tell us a little bit about VYRONE FINNEY.
Oh, it's like you said, man. Akron Public School, booked a graduate, Alabama State University.
Booked just won the national or the state championship in basketball. How different was that?
It's crazy, and the thing is, they having a parade right now. Everybody downtown.
Good deal, good deal.
Chopping it up for the griffs.
Okay.
It's funny because they saying that's the first Akron Public Schools to win a championship, but I said no, because we won one in football back in '87, '88.
Okay,
so I'm like, I got
Ricky Powers.
Ricky Powers. I had to correct all that information.
Okay,
so no, we won one in football. Now, but my whole platform is just being a voice for everyone.
Okay.
Being a product of Akron. Went to Alabama State, came back home, got my master's degree, worked in a public school system for over 20 years.
Nice.
I have a nonprofit 501c3. I do various health and wellness initiatives in the city, back to school giveaway, coat giveaway, health and wellness clinics, various different platform, Toys for Tots, Santa Claus giveaway, just different things I've been doing in the city. So I just looking at the direction that the city's been going in, and I just think, with being a Democratic city with Democratic school board, Democratic city council, Democratic mayor, and just seeing a stagnant way of doing things, just figured it was just time for a change. That's why I decided to run for city council at large as a Republican.
And you're running as a Republican.
As a Republican.
Okay.
So, the Republican Party, back in the 60s, and we've always, as African Americans, been, with the Republicans. Martin Luther King was a Republican.
Okay.
A lot of people don't know that. Back in the 60s, when the Voting Rights Act came along, and then they came with all this other stuff, welfare and everything, and black folks was thinking, well, they must be for us. So we got to vote Democrat from here on out. And if you look at the way things have progressed since the 60s, really is nothing. Redlining, blockbustering, just the different things that's going on in the housing market, the crime, police brutality, just all the things that's going on in a democratic society. So then we have to sit back and think, like, are we really Democrats? Right. Or are we really Republicans? I've always been independent, but just the Christian values of the Republican Party more aligned with how I feel.
Would you say Christian values, or would you just say more conservative values?
More conservative. I'm a pastor too. I don't know if you know that. I've been preaching for a year now. I'm associate pastor at Second Baptist Church. So just a lot of the conservative things, just like you said, the platforms, the different things that's going on around in the community. And I don't want to get off into the LGBTQ and all that stuff in situation. But when you for God and you doing things according to His will, and things are not going according to His will, you got to kind of take a stance.
I want to get off into that a little bit though, because one of the things that I often bring up is that we typically in the black community consider ourselves to be majority Democrats. And so when you look at the policies and the platforms, the issues that we voting in and voting on in elections, they don't tend to line up with, where we say we are spiritually. Rather, you Christian, you Muslim, whatever have you. People tend to not line up their values and their principles with how they live spiritually, it's like at that point we kind of just ignore all of that and say, you know, okay, we Democrats and we talk about this, you know, we tend to just give the Democratic Party our vote without any deal on the table. You know what I'm saying?
Without any questions.
Yeah, so it's, when you say like conservative in the values, you thinking like basically spiritual, like you say like what's the, as far as the platform that's for God, you know, the what we talk about like same-sex marriage, all this different stuff, that stuff is typically on the Democratic ballot, but not on the Republican ballot.
No, sir.
Okay,
no, sir.
yeah.
And a lot of things is controlled by that almighty dollar too. So when you start talking about the different platforms and the different things that we go for, and you know, when the pandemic came around, and then you had a lot of that money that was being circulated into the system, the PPP loans and different things like that, you know, you're gonna pretty much go with whatever platform, whether Trump in office, whether Biden's in office, you know, you're gonna pretty much go for who's ever giving you that money, and you're gonna try to use that to your advantage. So you gotta kind of look at some of the policies, who's doing it, who's it benefiting, and do your research and make sure that this is something that you can live with for the long run as opposed to the short run. And then you got to think about, how is this benefiting me? How's it benefiting my family? How's it going to benefit our children as they grow up? Benefit our grandchildren, so that, you know, we can look them in the face.
Right.
Said I did everything I could to make sure that this place is going to be a better place for you.
Okay.
Because I want to make sure it's better for you than it was for me.
Wow.
And then I challenge my child to make sure the places are better for her children than it is for her. So we gotta keep, you know, on a righteous path. We gotta stay focused. I think we need to mobilize. As I look at the parties as they are forming right now, with the Democrats and the Republicans, and if you look at around Akron what's going on, you'll see that a lot of the Democrats are running unopposed in the primary.
Right.
I'm seeing that.
And in the general election.
Exactly.
So you're going to get 4 more years of pretty much the same thing, because you don't have anybody to challenge them. You don't have anybody to keep them or hold them accountable. So whether I win or lose in November, because it's only 2 of us that's in the primary, so we automatically go to the general election, and then I'll face whoever the top 3 Democrats are. I want to mobilize and make sure that we have proper representation from Democrats, Republicans, Independents, young, old, everybody that has a voice, so that these individuals that's running unopposed, they can't say, well, you know, I don't have to worry about how you feel about me not voting for a young man on a Citizens Review Board, because I got another 4 years. Ain't nobody's going to challenge me.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, nobody's going to give me anything. I might come to a city council meeting, and I might have people that get 2 minutes to come in here and, you know, call me racist and say this and say that. But then at the end of the day, I go home, I come back next week, I'll vote on something else, another policy that you probably don't agree with, and who cares, because you don't have a say.
Right.
Because I'll be in this seat another 4 years.
Okay.
That's the problem with that.
Well, we going to take a quick break right here and go into our sponsor, you know, Upper Room Apparel, who's putting this thing together, you know what I'm saying, carrying and paying the bills for us. So we're going to go ahead and go knock this out, and we're going to come back. We're going to go ahead and a little friendly fire here, you know what I'm saying, so that we can kind of get into this whole Democratic Republican thing, man, because, you know, as a community, we are kind of almost psychologically programmed. There's a loyalty there with the Democratic Party. How do you get past that loyalty to get the support that you need from the community in order to be able to serve the community better? We're going to take this quick break. We'll be right back.
The perfect balance of streetwear and luxury proves we're just built different. The brand's DNA celebrates who we are and is unapologetic in our cultural evolution. It's fueled by the aspirational motto and brand mantra, the Upper Room, where great minds meet. Walk with me.
Let's bring together every hood and every city, every railroad. Real is rare and it's that Upper Room Apparel. Meaning of the minds and it ain't nothing but love. Great minds think alike, two brains better than one. You got my back, I got your front. Forever solid, it's in us we trust. Might not come overnight, before you walk, you crawl. United we stand, divided we fall. United we stand, divided we fall. United we stand, divided we fall.
Okay, we're back at the spot dealing with this thing, Republican friendly fire. Now, the Republican Party, you say historically, you talked about it, how African American people, black people in this country, we were historically Republican, and then the switch came. The switch came where, you know, based on what I understand about the history, there was a lot of business owners that was benefiting from the North, and they got to the point to where they said, you know what, at this point, the Great Depression kicked in. When the Great Depression kicked in, they start struggling. The businesses, they start really taking a hit. And they got to the point to where they said, we need to prioritize and we need to make it to where we kind of did enough for these black folks. You know, correct me if I'm wrong, we kind of did enough for them. Right now, we need to stop the bleeding as it relate to our resources. And when they dropped and set that aside, black folks' interests aside, the Democrats came and picked that ball up and ran with it. We looked at it and said, okay, it seems like our interest is over here now, and we start supporting the Democratic Party. Now, there's a psychological thing that happens that triggers in the black community where when you start, if you're a black person running as a Republican, we don't even want to hear your platform. We automatically put you into a box.
Right.
Right? Am I right?
Yeah.
And we really almost don't really get to hear you. We just start saying, like, why have you switched teams? You done sold out, you done went to the other side, you know, this is something that you must got a whole bunch of money, you know what I'm saying, pocket full of money, you out here representing rich folks. You got race, Republican versus Democrat, but then you also have class versus race. What do you see as more of an issue when it comes to what's the way that things are being applied? Is it class, or do you think that it's still this whole race thing that we're dealing with?
So let me go back to what you first saying, like how I was perceived when I came out as a Republican.
Right.
So when I went to the Republican headquarters, I said, you know, I'm gonna tell y'all two things as I'm running. I said, number one, I'm not a Donald Trump supporter. So you won't see me on stage with no Black for Trump sign on and all that stuff. I said, number two, I'm not no Herschel Walker Coon. So don't ask me to do nothing stupid because I'm not, you know. And they said, well, we understand, Mr. Finney, and we appreciate your honesty. And I think that's the key that's gonna get me in, is my honesty. You know, I'm a man of God. You know, I'm from the city. You know, I do various things in the community. Been doing them all my life.
Okay.
You know me, you know my character. So nothing like that will ever come. You know that money can't buy me. You know that different things has happened in my life to make me be more spiritually grounded, and I believe that's the test. But when it comes to the wealth, you know, I heard a long time ago that if you make over $100,000 a year, you're a Republican, whether you like it or not. You know, because when it comes to the money, it comes to the taxes, you're not giving that money back, and the more money you keep in your pocket, you're not saying, well, if I'm making $100,000, well, I don't want to be a Republican if I make $100,000. So if I'm gonna take $99,000. Put it in my pocket, but if I make 120, I'm gonna take 26,000. I'm gonna go give it to the poor. I'm gonna give. Nah, you gonna go buy you a car. You're gonna buy you some jewelry. You're gonna buy you some clothes. You're gonna do what normal people do. You're gonna invest in some real estate. You're gonna do all kinds of things to make your generational wealth so that you can be happy and sustain a good life for you and your family.
Okay.
Now, when it comes to race and class, you know, it's kind of a thing because, you know, being African American, you know, whether I'm a Republican or a Democrat, I'm treated the same way when I drive down the street. Police ain't gonna pull me over and say, oh, that's a Republican, let me pull him over.
Right.
Or that's a Democrat, that's an independent.
Okay.
You black. You get treated a certain way.
Gotcha.
You just have to deal with it.
Right.
Just the wealth status is the whole thing's way people perceive each other. You know, if you perceive me as a wealthy African American man, then you want to treat me a certain kind of way. I'm like, look at me as a child of God. Treat me that way. Treat me like you would want to be treated. So the wealth, the race, it's, you kind of getting into some semantics when you start talking about those
so
things.
it's not really anything that really plays a role as much now as it used to back in the day, is what you're saying?
No, because if you got a platform and people know you, and they know what you're all about, they know you're a man of integrity. Kareem, owner of the barber school, he's doing podcasts. I know you was doing a lot of different things. People tend to go by that more so of just being Kareem. As you're an entrepreneur, you're a father, you're a husband, you got children, your children are doing good in life, Mr. Ware, the same thing. People know your background, your character. Now, if you're just getting out of jail, it's going to take you some time to build that respect or build that trust up with people in your community. And it starts with yourself too. You got to know who you are and not be afraid. I've had overwhelmingly positive response by coming out as a Republican.
Okay.
It's a lot of black people in Akron, Ohio, that's Republican. When I got the list, because you got to get signatures, and like I said, you got to be either Republican or independent. And when I went through the list of just the people in my ward, you'd be shocked.
Wow.
It's a bunch of closet Republicans around here in Akron, Ohio.
I believe that because at one point in time, I remember during the George Bush, the W. Bush election, a lot of pastors stepped in and spoke with their congregation in regards to what I had asked you about when I talked about the values and principles being spiritual. And, looking at the two platforms, they told them this is where we stand as people of God, and this is where we gonna stand politically. We gonna look at this agenda and what's not like God. If it line up more over here, then we're gonna be over here. And they actually had a big push, I think, from the religious or the spiritual community into the Republican Party. And it kind of, at the time I was kind of thrown off. I was like, wow. I said, okay, so there are a lot more, pockets of black Republicans than what we know. We tend to think that we typically in that Democratic Party, but a lot of black people in the communities do run or do vote according to those values when it comes down to it.
You would be surprised. We're talking about upper echelon too, and you'll be surprised how many of those people that's sitting down there on city council that's Democrats, that's actually Republicans. They used the Democratic platform to get elected because they knew that in the city of Akron, it's ran all Democrats. So
Wait
I
a
have
second,
to
wait a
switch
second,
over.
wait a second.
Come
Yes,
on
sir.
in. Come
Yes,
on
sir.
in.
Say that
sir.
again. Say because that
Half
almost
the people
sounds
down
like
there on city council is actually Republicans. I believe Horrigan was a Republican before he switched over to run for
just for the sake of getting into office.
for the sake of getting in office, because you know that where you are, this is a Democratic city, and you know that you don't stand a chance running as a Republican. So you're going to switch over, you're going to have your platform, you're going to say all the right things, and you're going to do your, and that's another problem with the Republican Party. You have to pretty much do your time, and then they'll tell you it's time for you to be city council, it's time for you to be ward person, it's time for you to be mayor. Running as a Republican, I don't have to jump those hurdles with them. Nobody's telling me.
You mean as a Democrat, running as a Democrat, you got to play the game.
You got to play the game.
Whereas Republican, you're a little bit more independent.
Right, because if you look at the young brothers that's running for Democrat City Council law, Eric Garrett, John Osby, I think it's Fran, I'm not sure, it's some other people, but the three incumbents is Fusco, Amobian, and Ginger. But they've been doing it for so long. They've done their time, and then, but as the young people, I want them to mobilize. So, whether win or lose in November or May and November, that, we can get together, Democrat, Republican, Independents, and make sure we have representation, on city council, school board, mayor's office. Because like I said, you got a lot of them that's running unopposed right now. So they're not even worrying about any competition. Like you got about 4 of them. They're not running with no competition in the primary and in the general election. So you're going to pretty much get what you get.
Platform.
They don't have to have anything. They don't have to worry about no signs. They don't have to worry about getting the word out there. They don't have to worry about anything. And that's a problem. in each ward, it should be at least 3 or 4 Democrats running, 3 or 4 Republicans running, 3 or 4 independents running, so that you get a balanced ticket. And it's always good to have competition. You know, it keeps you on your toes. It makes you want to learn more, and it makes you want to, what this young man's bringing to the table, now I have to step in, but I have to learn, whether it's technology, whether it's religion, whether it's, you know, if somebody's on a LGBT platform and you got the majority of those people, like let's say live in a certain city, I mean in a certain ward, how I need to adapt to that and make that fit my, or if that don't adapt to me, I just need to pull out and say, no, this ain't for me.
Right.
You know, but you're not gonna say that because
that money,
it controls everything. Wow. You'd be surprised.
Okay. So, all right, you're running for at large, and for the benefit of our audience, okay. At large, you got city council.
You got city council.
And then at large deals with, instead of dealing with just individual ward, you're dealing with
the whole city.
The whole city as a whole. Okay, so when we get ready to go into the voters box, we don't really have, you know, they give us the little slip when we go in and we just go down the list and check off all of the Democrats and whatnot. We really are not skilled as it relates to understanding the game of politics. And so we complain about how we're not really getting politics to work for us, but I think it's because we don't really understand how it's played. So for the benefit of this conversation, I looked up a couple of different terms, and I want to really get your look on them, and because we're talking about the African American voting bloc or people trying to get some benefit for our particular community. So the first was politics. Now I found an interesting definition of politics. They said that politics is the shaping and distribution of power. The shaping and distribution of power. Now that says, okay, we go from shaping and distribution of power to now what exactly is power? That's a real broad term. Let's define it for this conversation. Power is the ability to get a person or group to do something they would not otherwise do. So the shaping and distribution of power and the ability to get a person or group to do something that they would not otherwise do. So now you look at black politics. Everybody have their politics and they vote in a way that serves their community, except for us. So for the sake of this conversation, for black politics is the purposeful activity of black people to acquire, use, and maintain power. The purposeful activity. You lost us right there.
Right.
Because there's no intention as it relates to the way that we vote. There's no intention behind it. So you have to ask yourself, okay, as these candidates come across, what boxes are they checking that's going to serve the community, right? And so with that in front of you and understanding this, what's the boxes that VYRONE Finney is checking as it relates to what's going on in the community? Where's the help? Where do we need it? Where's the bleeding? What needs to stop? How do we look at this?
That's a loaded question, young man. I'm gonna answer as best I can. Because when you talk about the politics and you talk about the power, that's the main thing.
Okay.
To control, to make people do something that otherwise they wouldn't do.
Not do. Right.
And we've been programmed to that for 400 years to do what we don't want to do. We've been doing things and we pretty much go with the flow, and then we just pretty much just accept it for what it really is, in the reality. And if you go back, 20, 30, 40, 50 years when, you was growing up and somebody would tell you, well, you can't do this, you can't do that, it's a white man, this white man.
They ain't gonna let you do this, they ain't gonna let you do that.
And it was funny because I was thinking about this the other day. I was in my math teacher at Bookto, Mr. Mositas, old white guy. And he was like, yeah, this is a white man's world. And back then, 87, 88, I was like, no, it ain't this guy's world. It ain't no white man's world. You born just like I'm born. You have the same, your blood flows the same way my blood flows. You die, I die. So it ain't no white man's world, it's God's world.
Right.
And I've always been at battling odds with people.
Okay.
So when you say the power, it's interesting how we perceive they have all the power. And God has the power. God has the glory. And if you are a child of God, and if you are afraid of God, and if you put somebody else before him, you know, then you're going to suffer the wrath of whatever that is. So I can't sit here and be afraid of a white man or Kareem or Mr. Ware, young Kareem. I have to be afraid of God, because he's going to put me in a position, because he will humble me to a point where if I'm afraid of you and not him, then he's going to make me do something less than what I need to be, which is, it goes to that power.
Absolutely.
So now you're thinking about in a realm of men, politics, and that sort of thing. That's why I'm running as a Republican, because I said I'm going to not do the status quo. I'm not going to fall in line with these Negro leaders and play that game and then wait for my turn and then sit there like a good boy while they pat me on the head and say, good job, Vyrone. It ain't the white people that's doing it, it's the black folk, which is even worse.
Wow.
Because you know who put you in a position. Somebody was praying for you.
Right.
Somebody, and that's, as black people, we're spiritually, always been family oriented, always been that. And we've gotten away from that.
Praying as people on the planet.
Praying as people on the planet, always. And the most forgiving people on the planet, as time and history would tell. So just to get us back to that is where I stand.
Okay.
I want to give us that power, because I love these young people. I love how they doing the marching and that sort of thing, but everybody can't do that marches. Everybody can't be protesting. Some of us got to go through the back door, like me. You know, a lot of the Democrats didn't see me coming. Not only is he running, but he's running as a Republican. Well, y'all done closed the door on me. You upper epsilon Negro Democratic leaders that's so uppity and turn your back on your community that I got to go another route. So as I come in this way, you know, while y'all doing all this infighting with each other on the city council and can't disagree on this, can't disagree on that, and I'm just sitting back watching. And I'm just waiting my turn. I'm being patient. And then when that door opens, I'm going to step in it. And I know God's going to open that door. I'm not worried about no man. But when you get to the politics and the power, we don't have it. That's why we have to mobilize. That's why we have to get together. So in 4 years from now, and it could be a young white Democrat, but he have the same like-minded values, and he want to see the city grow in the same way. He don't want to keep things going in the same status quo, which is getting nothing done around the city.
Right.
Same thing for independent, same thing for Republican, and whoever. And if they don't pick me, then pick the best person for the job. And if you pick, if it's the 3 incumbents, then I want you to hold them accountable. So when the next Citizens Review Board come on and this, that, and the other, and you're not being held hostage by the police union because they scared that somebody's gonna say something bad about them or something. Well, listen, if y'all doing what y'all supposed to do, you know, if there's no problems about policing and patrolling the neighborhoods and not being afraid of black people and thinking that we always trying to do something or out to get you or trying to get over, y'all ain't got those worries, then everything is gonna be fine. You know, I don't think we should defund the police, but I think that in the academy, they ought to have some kind of cultural diversity training, you know, and be honest with you, I think they ought to be able to have some kind of 2-year degree where they should go, you know, because you giving somebody power over the community. That's who has the power right now. The police union and the teachers union. And the teachers union is a whole nother. But the police union that's what's controlling everything. It's controlling the mayor. It's controlling who we select as a mayor. Watch what I tell you.
Right.
They already came out and endorsed Marco. Marco gonna win. I'm telling y'all that right now. Marco Somerville. Marco gonna win.
Marco is gonna step in
because
on this situation.
Marco got that backing. And you know, no matter how much money all these candidates can raise and this, that, and the other, and then Marco's gonna step in and he's gonna keep the same thing going as before because Marco done waited his time. But that's how the city runs. It's not about young, innovative. Look at all these big cities. Look up in Cleveland. They got that young black brother, Bill, up there. Look all over, even down in Montgomery. They got Joel Reed's son. Yeah, he's mayor of the city. Now, Montgomery, Alabama. Why is they more progressive in the South than we are in the North?
Wow.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
Let me ask you, going in on this with Marco, going in on the situation, since we on the public safety and the situation that just happened here in Akron, you with Jalen Walker. Do you think that also has some influence in regards to Marco and his backing and being able to push him? Because I was wondering why Horrigan would want to step aside.
Because he know the storm coming. That man can see
Right.
he see the storm coming. He sees the future of the city. He don't want no parts of that. I mean, if everything was roses and everything was good and all you got to do is just walk out your door and, you know, everybody waving and high, but when you got people standing out on your line, you got to have police assistance because they protesting and you're not used to that and you don't come from that type of environment, you don't want no parts of that. You don't want your family to have parts of that.
Right.
And you got to be a strong person to accept ridicule and criticism.
Right.
And if you got all Democratic leadership, you never gonna face that because there's no Republican down there saying you're doing this wrong and you doing it. Like I said, you got people that'll show up at the council meeting, they got 2 minutes to speak, and then they gonna sit up there and they gonna say you're racist, and they gonna say you're not for the people, they gonna say you this, they gonna say you that. But then at the end of the day, they go home and then they get right back in those seats, and the next week they voting on the same things that's the policies that's not changing anything around the city. So until we get together and mobilize. And I hope you two brothers.
Explain that a little bit. Get together and mobilize. What does that look like? What does that entail? What's the community's role in doing that? Like, what do they say, okay, all right, this is what I need to do in order to get in line with that idea?
So right now we got a good thing with the young people and the Black Lives Matter movement and a lot of these different churches coming together and they protesting and they getting ready for things, and that's good. That's one aspect. Okay. Another aspect is to recruit some young, innovative like-minded people, black, white, Democratic, Republican, Independent, to run for some of these offices also. Get some level of competition. Also, it would be good to find businesses that support these movements so that we can have, you know, the backing from the financial aspect. We can have the educational aspect with different people, college degrees, without college trade schools. We can have them. We can have business owners, and everybody's coming together for the greatness of the city, as opposed to, because right now we got organizations, but they're not together. For whether it's fear, whether it's not knowing, that's what I want to do. I want to mobilize and I want to get everybody together. So maybe you gonna run for the next ward. You say Mr. Hannah's in your ward. You feel like you can do a better job. I think Mr. Hannah's in his 60s or 70s. We need some younger people. So I'm going to endorse you to run for ward. Kareem, you live over on our side of town. So I think that's Shamus Malik. I think that's Hardy and Sage. You know, in 4 years when that comes up, now we got Kareem. Kareem's a Muslim. You could be Jewish. I could be Christian. It's good to have all these different melting pots together because we all have similar ideas. We like-minded individuals and we want the same thing. We want the city to go in a new and better direction. And we want younger people that's going to be the ones to lead the city. So then you can lead this for your son, Kareem. So now he knows, you know, he done went to school, art school. He got that background. He can have a political knowledge background. He's a Muslim. He has all that. He can bring that to the table because there's good in everything that everybody does. That's what I mean by mobilizing. Because if you look at, you know, right now, you know, Trump, he was like a dog whistle for like white supremacists, Proud Boys and all them. He gave them the platform to say it's okay to be racist. It's okay to do this. It's okay to do that. So use that same energy that he used to say it's okay for us to get organized now.
Right.
It's okay for us to speak up. It's okay for us to do this so that now we have a say. Because that's what's controlling the narrative right now. All that foolishness. They was telling me that DeSantis was coming here next month when I was down at the headquarters getting my
Florida governor.
He's coming out
here.
And they was like, yeah, DeSantis is coming. I said, yeah, I ain't gonna be nowhere near that man. He's trying to erase black history by whitewashing it with white history. And you can't do that because that's just making me even more of a student of history. What are you so afraid of? What am I going to learn about you and your ancestors that I don't already know?
Right.
And then you got to think about the Republican Party too. That little set, it's about 10%. I wouldn't even say 10%. That's the MAGA crazy, Marjorie Taylor Greene, them type of idiots that's going away, but they trying to hold on to that little bit of power. They thinking back to the 60s when they just ruled and everything and everybody was scared of them. Now they just look like a bunch of clowns. Don't nobody even take them serious no more. And as you see that little bit of sect, like DeSantis is Donald Trump 2.0. And he's just trying to
a little bit more politically savvy.
Savvy, but at the same time, he don't realize that he's not helping himself He's thinking that everybody's going to follow this model that they doing down in Florida. Well, everybody in Florida don't like it. You know what I'm saying? So don't think that everything is great down in Florida. It's not. And, you know, and people are mobilizing down there to make sure that they have the proper people to run against him when the next time, if he don't run for president. But that's what I mean by mobilize. Get together, get organized, and then when the next election comes, we got proper representation, Democrat, Republican, Independents, in each ward, city council, and mayor.
Right.
Whoever wins this primary as mayor is going to be the mayor. They don't even have to face an independent or a Republican because the guy that was running as Republican didn't get all his signatures.
Wow.
So whoever wins the primary is the mayor.
That's what it was.
In May 2nd,
Signatures.
unless somebody comes in and runs as an independent, whoever wins the primary in May is the mayor. They ain't even got to worry about November. That's crazy. In a major city like this, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's
That's crazy.
Okay,
bro.
so when I hear people talking about politics, I never hear solutions. It's a problem-focused approach. And everybody, we know very well the problems. Everybody's complaining. They complain about the police. They complain about the school system. They complain about all these things, but nobody really has the solutions. And I think that even though it seems like you're talking about the same thing, the energy surrounding the problem and the energy surrounding the solution is totally different. So if energy works in a way to where you're attracting things that's consistent with the energy of the subject, and then you really don't want to have a problem-focused conversation. You might state the problem so that you can develop a solution, but you don't want to stay there. When you look at police, you talked a little bit about a 2-year system. I hear some people talking about integrating squad cars and that type of thing. What are the things that, how do we get to a solution-based conversation as opposed to problem-based conversation?
So the one thing is we had a survey that went around and it asked people in the city of Akron what were their concerns, and policing, public safety, that sort of thing was at the top of the list. So then you want to focus on those things and you want to focus on the positive things, bringing jobs to the city, you know, knowing that, you know, Goodyear and Firestone is not coming here with 50,000 factory jobs no more. So focus on small businesses, you know, just like with the podcast, you know, young people, innovative minds doing positive things. They have a thing called Bounce downtown Akron, the innovative hub. You can go through a free entrepreneur class, and then I think once you get to round 2, you're gonna have to pay. But just getting people started, getting their own LLCs, buying property, those sort of things to help you generate wealth while you can make money while you're sleeping. You know, doing things like that, focusing on that. When it comes to policing, you know, it's, you know, my thing is recruitment. It's all about recruitment. Who are you attracting to these jobs? Who do you say, you know, I want you to come to the city of Akron, which is a great city, beautiful city, you know, one city that you can come to and you can get all 4 seasons. We can't say that, you know, we got a long winter or we got a long summer. We get everything. We get rain, we get snow, we get sunshine, and we get leaves in the fall. And it's balanced.
You're talking about recruiting from outside the area for people.
I'm saying recruiting inside.
Man, look,
I want to recruit inside. I think the people from Akron knows people from Akron.
Right. This was about 4 years ago, 5 years ago. In the barbershop, they would have.
I know where you're going with that.
Yeah. We would have, because evidently it was a lot of African American officers who were about to retire. All of them were right around retirement age, and they said they would come through the shop on a Saturday afternoon, and the shop would be packed, and people would come in there, or the officers would come in there, and they would be having applications in their hands, trying to recruit. Man, we need more African Americans to go to the academy and become officers, because in a minute we're all going to be leaving, and if y'all don't get involved, people would ask questions. Man, how much is they paying? You know, you can get up to, you know, captain 60,000, 65,000. And they were selling. They were selling this idea, and when they was done, man, it would happen every single time, man. Man, that all sounds good, man, but I can't be no police. You know, it's like, so the
But they have to change their image too, Kareem, and it starts with them in the academy, bro. You go to the academy, what is y'all motto? Shoot to kill? injured. Like sometimes shoot somebody in the leg, shoot them in the butt. You know what I'm saying? You ain't gotta kill somebody all the time. That's my thing. I mean, if that's what you're doing with target practice, is to aim for the kill, for the heart or the head. You know what I'm saying? If you got somebody that's suffering from mental health, they don't have no gun, they don't have no knife. The first thing shouldn't be to kill the person. Put them down.
Right.
De-escalate. Work on that sort of things. But just like everybody else, man, they might be having a bad day. The girlfriend might have left, the wife might have left. It might be something going on with them, and then they just have to deal with that, and then it all just comes to a head one day or one afternoon, just like me and you. So learning how to deal and cope with those type of situations is going to be the key to the police department. But recruiting, it's hard right now because they catching so much flack.
Like we got to be part of the solution, though. It's like we have to get to be part of the solution as opposed to, because it's hard to stop that from the outside. You got to have some people inside on the force. Because I know a lot of police officers, and I tell you what, man, it's like these are good dudes. Like I don't really know any bad police officers. I know a lot of these guys. Some of them retired, and we have conversations all the time about what's going on in the city. And at the same time, we don't want to make it seem like, when you look at the amount of black people that's being killed and the amount of black people that's being killed by the police, it's very disproportionately we're killing each other as opposed to the police killing us. We'll put the spotlight on and it'll get all of the press because it's a hot topic. But the reality is we have a lot to do. We have a lot of work to do internally as a community. Before, like if you had listed the problems of what is holding or problems that the black community need to address, probably police brutality wouldn't make the top 10. It wouldn't make the top 10. We got a lot of work to do.
We kill ourselves more than they killing us.
Okay, so now we get back into the conversation when you point that lens inward and start looking at, is it education on the process? Is it us? Do we need to go back and take a civics class? Or what is it that we need to do in order to be able to get engaged? Because people, the turnout as it relates to voter turnout, is getting to where among our community is low during the 4-year elections. So you know how low it's always a drop off in the primaries and the midterms. So what do we do?
Man, I think
what are you doing to get people out, to get people more active?
Being visual, being out there, being assertive, telling people about the platform. I was saying that, I want Johnny Osby and Eric Garrett to do good. So I'm taking some votes away from myself in the primary. A lot of black people, in general, people don't know that when you go to a primary, you have to vote either Democrat or you have to vote Republican. You can't vote in you got to choose one. And a lot of people are going to vote Democrat because they more aligned with the Democrats. So I'm not putting myself out there with signs and everything because I want Johnny Osby and Eric Garrett to do good. So by keeping myself back, that's letting people know I don't have to go out there and vote for Vyrone right now. But now in November, that's when you vote for me. Don't worry about me in the primary because I'm going to be on the ticket regardless. So then Eric and Johnny could get some votes that might have been geared towards me because if they vote for me in the Republican Party, they can't vote for them on the Democrat side. So just being educated, and people need to know, what are you voting for? What do you stand for?
Right.
And then I have to be an example of that too, Kareem. People have to see me. I can't be out here doing disrespectful things to myself, to my community, my wife, my daughter. I got to be in a positive light. Like I said, I'm a minister, so I'm under a microscope from God. I can't hide from God. Even if I leave out here and, I might want to smoke a joint or, get high or, go do something that I'm not supposed to do. I can't hide that from God. So I'm always under the spotlight just for myself.
Right.
And it's more of an accountability thing too, Kareem. And we just have to get back to the family, holding each other accountable. And like I said, our black family has took a turn, where we don't have that structure. And even if you look at the church, man, you go to church nowadays, man, half the church is filled up. You don't have that same generation of,
coming
through.
Ain't really grabbing that baton like they like it would have been back in the day.
And that's kind of scary, man, because it's like, well, you know, in 20, 30 years, where's the black church going to be?
Right.
You know, are we still, because, you know, a lot of these older members, you know, are dying off. And you don't have too many people stepping up and saying, I want to be the pastor, or I want to do this, I want to be a deacon, I want to be usher. You know, so you got to actually just be out there and show people how you living. And if your light is shining, then they going to feel like maybe you're doing something positive. And then I look at that as, look at just in the community as well as in the home, in the church, and in my businesses that I do. You know, if I'm successful, then people will think, well, then that's what I want to do, or that's what I want to be like.
Now, back in the day, it was two things that you had that was consistent with the civil rights movement and our fight for progress. One was that the people were young. You didn't see a whole bunch of old folks participating in the process. They probably had their role that they did behind the scenes, but the people who were out front, they were all young. And the second was that the church, like you talked about, the church was out front. Mm-hmm. You don't see that as much no more. No. What's the cause, or what's behind the lack of engagement? Is it a 501c3 thing? What is it that's keeping the church? Because it seemed like those are the freest. Okay, I used to hear this all the time, that the freest black man in America was the black preacher, because he didn't have to worry about the system cutting off his paycheck. So if anybody should be able to say what needs to be said without no repercussion, it was the pastor. So the church was always out front. So where's the church?
That's an excellent question, because we talk about that. My pastor, Roderick C. Pounds, he leads the Black Lives Matter movement. He leads the marches. He leads those. He says that from the pulpit. You know, you can't be a leader up here and not a leader out in the community. Right. And he chastises a lot of those black, because he reaches out to all of them and say, hey, we gonna protest down to City Hall today. I need y'all to join me. And none of them show up. And it's a fear. You know, maybe they feel like they're gonna lose members. They fear like, you know, I don't want to be a part of all that radicalness. I want to be, you know, I have status in the community, and if I go to your church, then that means you have status in the community. But if you out there representing me and that brings some kind of negative light to me or the church, then that's something that I don't want to be a part of. And then it comes down to this. You don't want to lose members as a pastor, because, you know, that's a very comfortable life, very lifestyle. You know, you preach on Sundays, you do a Sunday school, you maybe, or you do Bible study, you maybe teach a Sunday school, or you have somebody doing that for you, but you don't want that. You don't want anything to jeopardize that. And that's where, as you were saying, back in the 60s, that was one of the, you know, and then the young people that was doing all the marching and stuff, like, you know, John Lewis and all them at Selma, you know, a lot of them, they passing on. So the next generation didn't have to do all that. They set the stepping stones for that. And then we just walking across the bridge where they was getting beat across the bridge. So they don't have to worry about that now. And I think about the Edmund Pettus Bridge and just going down there one day just to drive across it, just to think about the history of it and what they had to go through just to vote. You know, and it's amazing that how blessed these young kids are today, that they don't have to deal with that. You might have somebody that might bully you on Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat or one of them things. That was the brutality back then that they was facing, because they wanted to vote. And they got a special coming up on MSNBC about Lowndes County, Alabama, and it's in between Montgomery and Selma, about when they was trying to vote and how all these black men was coming up missing, like hundreds in a small little community that it was more of them than it was white people. But they wanted to control them so much, they was killing them, and they was just coming up missing. Like, it's a special on MSNBC tonight about Lowndes County and how, you know, the structure of how it was back then. But nowadays, kids don't care about voting. You know, today's kids is more interested in, like I said, Snapchat, YouTube, TikTok. They talking about taking TikTok away. Now you're gonna see some kids marching. He
in court right now. They going at him.
Yeah, they going at it because they think. And if you look at the TikTok and the algorithm, and you think about some of the things that they let go, like we focusing on shooting these videos and being silly and this, that, and the other, but over in China, they focus on math, geometry, arithmetic,
reading, artificial intelligence,
different things like that to stimulate your mind. And we all about partying, and enjoying ourselves and being silly. And that's part of the reason why they having this issue with this TikTok thing. And it's true. You know, if I'm another country and I say, you know what, if all they want to do is be silly, all they want to do is talk about LGBT, all they want to do is that, then I'm going to promote that. Because then that's focusing, while y'all focus on that, we build these nuclears, we building the next space station, we doing this because y'all taking away from y'all selves by thinking about all that little silly stuff.
Let me ask you a question in speaking in terms of how you were talking about how in times past and in history of the black community, just like with Dr. Martin Luther King and the church and the civil rights movement back in those times versus now, and you said that your pastor, he calls for the pastors to come out. I'm a firm believer too that if you have a church in a community where the crime rate and the poverty and the deviance is constantly rising, then you have to be a face of that community. You can't be sitting inside the walls calling for membership. Like you didn't, you follow a Lord that went out into where they were sick at and where the poverty and the slums. Like he wasn't sitting back inside. Your platform, is that going to be at the top of your platform as a councilman to engage the faith and religious community to put them back at the forefront of the political arena, and how would you go about doing that?
Yeah, you have to lead by example. And I've always, like I said, I have a nonprofit 501c3, so I've been doing back to school giveaway and coat giveaways since like 1999 when I came home. Being a principal at East, I used to see kids walking to school with hoodies on. So I said, man, it's the middle of winter time. You walking down Britain Road. I said, man, I organized a coat giveaway. Man, I think we done gave away over 20,000 coats in 20 years. At least 200 kids a year. I'll do school supplies. I said, it don't make no sense for a kid to be sitting up in a school without a pencil, paper, notebook, and those sort of things. So book bag, get a school supply. That's how I'm so tied in with my man Eric Garrett, because he would have the barber college come down at Mason and do free haircuts. So while the kids was in line getting book bags, then they come through, get a free haircut. So I've always had that community connection. And then plus, I grew up in Edgewood Projects, lived on Rose Avenue. So I've always had those connections. Still know people from back then, and, just always having that rich history and, wanting to give back. So that's always been part of my agenda, even before I got into this political game. So, and it shows, people know me, people know what I've done in the community. So, and I think a lot of people are, at first they were shocked that I'm running. And to be honest with you, I've heard from people down there on council that told me, I'm glad you're running as a Republican, man. We need something different. We need that difference of opinion.
Kind of shake things up.
And I've talked to a couple of people. I know some judges and different people down there in different aspects, and they all excited for me. They more excited than I am. I'm like, it's just something else for me. I'm into so many different things. This is just something else.
Hey man. Okay. Well, all right. I'll tell you what, man. We've had a really, really good conversation. I think I learned a lot, man, about what your intention is. It's a real wholesome approach to something that people look at, man. When they look at politics, man, it's a dirty game. It's almost like people look at you if you're not slinging mud, and then you almost looked at as being kind of soft out here with the mud. It's like people want to see. It's almost like during the Trump years, you got to the point to where watching politics, man, it's like coming watching WWE or something like that. You was looking for a fight.
They coming for the jugular.
Yeah. The challenge is, responsible leadership. In order to follow responsible leadership, it kind of puts the pressure on the person to be kind of halfway responsible themselves. And so, as we close out, man, what is, when you're talking about having people take personal responsibility, what is some things that the community as a whole can do, not as a community? Because I think that the reason that we don't make progress is because we feel like it has to happen with everybody doing it right now, all at the same time, instead of each individual just taking upon themselves and say, you know what, this is something that I'm going to do as an individual to get involved. And if every individual took that stance, and then the community would change overnight. So what is it that you want to almost challenge people in the community to do?
Yeah, more accountability. You know, more
personal accountability.
More personal accountability. Find out what the things are. Find out what your weaknesses are and make them your strength. If you know, individual, you know, can't catch a break. You know, every time you drive down the street, the police pull you over. Get your license. You know, stop playing that game where it's like hide and seek. I can only come out at night when they. No, get your license. Get your situation. You know, make your situation better. You know, you got to start from somewhere. You know, everybody ain't gonna start at the CEO. You know, get a job, work somewhere where you know if it's not something you enjoy doing, find something you enjoy doing. It's so many different things out here, man. It's a million ways to make money.
Right.
And don't rely on one avenue or one thing. Broaden your mind. Open up, you know, and it's hard for us because sometimes our own people tell us what we can't do. You can't do this, you can't do that. You know, stop listening to them folks. You know, you can do anything you want. You know, and that's encouraged. Be encouraged. You know, have faith. You know, I have faith in God. You know, and all I can say is, you know, I can, you know, bring you to the church and you can hear a good word. You know, I can refer you to somebody and you can get a good word. And you know, and listen, study, and understand what you're doing, you know, and have some knowledge about everything, and just stop being so naive. And that's what we have to do as a race, you know, as a country, you know, as a group of citizens. You know, we just have to take full responsibility and accountability for ourselves and our actions, and we have to hold each other accountable too. So, Kareem, if I get elected to this position, Mr. Ware, and I'm doing something, or you heard about something that I'm doing I'm not supposed to do, you got my number. You can call me up, come to a city council meeting, come to my office, come to my house, say, look, bro, you know, I done heard some things about you, man. You out here, you ain't doing what you said you wasn't gonna do, and we won't hold you accountable. And then me as a man, I'm like, you right. You know, if I'm not, and if it's a rumor, then I'm like, nah, bro, that ain't me, that's somebody else. But you never know. You know, things happen, you know, things change, and like I said, money ain't gonna buy me, man. Ain't nobody gonna come to me with $1 million. I want you to vote on this highway contract when it comes through, and I'll make sure I contribute to your campaign, which is what they do. And you know, nah, bro, I'm gonna make sure that it's bid on by all the contractors. Make sure it's minority contractors, just like you and whatever your company is. And then we, as a committee, is gonna agree, if that's what committee I sit on who this contract should go to. And make sure it's equitable too, because, you know, being that Akron is 40% black, then 40% of the contract should be going to minorities. You know, and make sure it's equitable.
Simple math. Simple math. Okay, so what give me something that we need to look out for in this election, something that might surprise people that's going on under the current that we might not see, but if we're looking for it, we'll see it. What's something that's going on?
Well, you know, on the Democratic side, you know, I know some things, but I can't say it, because if I say it, then the people that's in these positions gonna know it's coming from somebody that's close to them. Because that's one thing about being connected to the city. You know everything and everybody, and people tell you things, whether somebody is not doing good health wise, and you know they just in it for a short run, or if they're in it for the long run. If somebody else have other aspirations, like if they on the school board, but they only was on the school board so they can run for city council, so they can run for city council, so they can run for
long-term play.
It's a couple of them that's doing that right now, but I can't say no names.
Can't say no
but
names.
they know who they are.
I ain't one of the guys that you ain't heard it from me.
You ain't heard it from me, Mr.
Okay. All right, I tell you what, you looking for support, I'm sure, for your campaign. How do people get in contact with you? How do they support your journey here?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, VYRONE_Finney, and Facebook, VYRONE Finney, and Twitter, VYRONE Finney. And my email is vyronef@gmail.com, VYRONEF@gmail.com. It's Friends for Finney, so a vision for everyone. So you can always email me or DM me if you need any literature. I'll be doing my signs in the fall.
Okay.
You can only put them out 45 days before the election. And since I'm not really, I don't have no competition in the primary, I figured there wasn't no need for me to do all that stuff. So, and if you want yard signs, just email me or DM me, and you can get in touch with me anytime, or just call Kareem. He got my number. You can call me.
Absolutely,
right.
absolutely. Dame, anything else while we on our way out the door?
No, man, he did an excellent job,
Pretty
man.
thorough
Actually,
conversation.
I had some questions on here in regards to a few things, and he just, he subbed them up. He asked them for me.
Good deal.
So, hey, I'm good, man.
All right, man. I appreciate you coming by and hanging with us for this hour or so, man. And
Anytime.
good luck to what you got going on.
Fellow Alabama State Hornet.
Alabama State, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, man. That's good, man. Good to see cats out here doing some things, making the mark and everything. So that's it for today. We here at the spot. We'll check y'all out next time. Good deal.
Thank you, brother.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you, young man.
Yes, sir.
All right.